Okay, so we're calling to order. Roll call.
She's amazing.
Sure, Joe Thompson, Jim Ross,
Jennifer Draft.
David Roth.
Nancy Ruff.
Everyone, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So we just have a roll call.
So we're approving the minutes you just sent? Is that right?
I
From the
literally
sixth?
just at the sixth meeting, so.
It was very short, I had no problem with it.
Okay.
I haven't looked at it.
Don't admit
It
that.
pretty much was the agenda and then at the end,
The date that we had to break out.
yeah, and I just said, the only call out I had on meeting updates was you trying to organize a interview with the Hampshire Brothers. Was the only really thing I added to the agenda.
So we wanna approve them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
second.
And then, so
And then the
then,
next one. We had two to do that.
Yes.
yeah, so then the second set would have been,
And Nancy, you had some revisions you wanted to add on what didn't need.
oh yeah, and I did not print it out, but the something about that we all agreed that we were under some time pressures. And we discussed the time pressures, but I didn't think we were necessarily in agreement on it. And then there was something else, I don't remember what it
Was that
was.
for, what day, what the heck? did they-
That would have been the 25th.
Yeah, last week, 20th, 13th,
20th.
breakouts.
20th,
So there was no meeting at 13.
and I don't have.
And I forget, were those Jericas or Jims?
It was
Me.
So you're looking for it?
inspired interview, minutes from June 20th. Nancy, we discussed whether or not we were under any time limits. I don't remember that we agreed, that we were in agreement on that. We also talked about how and when we want to begin writing the report, but did not come to any conclusions.
No, and that's true.
How and when, what?
You said how and when we want to begin writing the report,
Oh, yes.
but we did not come to any
Yeah,
conclusions.
there again, we were just beginning to talk about the writing of the report.
So
So how do we feel about those minutes? And
I'm gonna bring it up here too.
so we're approving the 6th. Okay, and then this one.
I mean, I guess we could add a sentence or two, saying this was early discussions and our plan was to revisit it another meeting
on the report discussion
or on the report and then.
on the,
He says the committee discussed and shared ideas how they see the final report would be presented in writing. So he doesn't, but in the sentence after that, we all agreed that our timeline to finish and present report is limited and we must focus on getting all information. So,
And I think I put that in there as part of it because, I mean, obviously we don't want to string it out for years and years and years,
yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's,
Well, but it's important to be right.
no, I mean, well, okay.
And limited kind of looks like we're done next week or something. So, how about,
maybe you just said it, say all agreed, you can just say we all discussed.
there you go,
Yeah,
just put that, yeah.
Just make it more general.
Yep. And I can't do it on the phone, I'd have to do it on the laptop.
Yeah. So we're agreed on those changes?
Yeah, those are good changes.
Okay.
So we can shelf these and approve them.
Yeah.
I'm going to motion to,
Motion to approve
well, you'd have to,
with
agree
changes.
to, what am I thinking?
Addendum,
Agenda, or I mean, to change it to,
revise,
revise, or something, you could use it.
With revisions.
Revision,
Okay.
thank you.
approve with revisions.
Okay, so then we've got some topics for discussion. So the status on sending the written questions to Paul Oberdorfer. We did send him questions on June 19. I trust we have not heard back.
I have not heard anything back. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, right?
Yeah,
I copied you guys all and just wanted to make it transparent or try to be transparent, so we forwarded the questions to all the city commissioners. So they're aware that, hey, we as a group, we sent our questions to the city manager on June 19th. And as of yesterday, as of today, we have not heard anything yet. So we're still waiting on a response.
I had run into Chris Lee and he didn't seem to be aware that we had sent the questions to Paul. And then he wanted to know right away, how many questions was it? And so I said, well, I didn't think the number was all that important, but it was about a page and a half. And he kind of shrugged like, no big deal. So that's where we are with that. We never gave him a deadline, we're just,
Yeah, I mean,
because he may or
the
may
sooner
not
the
admit it.
better, but
Yeah,
well, the questions were difficult questions, I would
Right.
expect a week, would have been sufficient to answer those. It's not like we're looking for blue book, for each one of them, so.
maybe we'll give it another week and then
We got the holidays coming up, so probably next week, I'd say, before,
maybe reach out.
week after,
Yeah,
hopefully, who knows? So,
okay, so then status on the upcoming interviews. I have been in contact with Carrie Fritz of Bowling Green Fire School today, back and forth. Basically, she's turned us down. I wanted to clarify with her, would she be open to just David and I meeting with her? And I didn't check with you, but maybe we'd even be willing to go up to Bowling Green. We tried to do everything we could to get this interview, and she hasn't responded back to that part. So I think her answer's no.
Did she say why she is rejecting?
She did, and I just prefer not to get into it, given that it's a public meeting, we're being recorded. But she did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then the Hampshires.
The lake house this week, I posed the week of the 25th, let me just look at his calendar, get some dates.
That week, not the 25th, but the week.
Yeah, the 25th falls in. I told him we have flexibility that week, and if there's a day that works for them to get in at a time, then let us adjust, so I'll let you
it
know.
was July, right?
Yeah.
July. We'll ask him.
And that week is,
But we wouldn't be doing it on the we could do it on the 24th and 25th are kind of out.
Yeah.
So that is Monday, Tuesday, and Friday of that week.
Yep. The normal meeting would have been on the 25th, but since I was not in play that week, I asked them the week of the 25th.
Okay.
So 22nd, 3rd. Yeah, so try to figure it out.
So that's all I've got on interviews. Anybody else wanna?
Well, to be honest with you, I was kind of waiting to see some answers from the city manager so that we could start formatting a little bit more questions and figuring out who we want to talk to based on some of his answers. So for me, it's kind of one delay, setting up another delay, setting up another one. And then that's the first thought. Second thought is, I'm not sure what happened with Bowling Green State University, but when your leader sets the tone and won't talk to you, then I think the followers follow behind and we struggle because that's format that's been set by their leader. I'm talking leader, I'm talking city employees, I'm talking former city employees. Okay, so really just the whole thing's a domino effect when he decided you gotta take questions and now it's a week and it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, he's not urgent what we're doing and so
I think this was a concern when we
did the questions.
did these questions.
Do you think we should give a deadline? And what would be the consequence of that?
It's all fine and well, but without any support or backing, then it's, I don't know, deadline's just gonna be a number, a date.
maybe after a certain point, we just say, hey, obviously, this isn't working, you know, and we just,
Maybe it's a deadline for our own heads. After this date, we're not gonna worry about it anymore.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're just gonna have to move forward and start just reaching out to people and making our own requests that we wanna talk to. And a lot of them, like I said, Frank has the connections, Frank offered to send out an invitation when we first started this meeting. So we'll go through him and ask him to get some, you know, here's our list, can you reach out to this guy, this person, this person? And, we're not gonna go down without swinging. We're gonna ask for them to sit down and let us interview them, or have a conversation. We're gonna have to get them no, they're not gonna do it, or they'll let us set questions, but they're not gonna make assumptions, they won't talk to us. We're gonna have to ask them, and then chips will fall where they fall, but we gotta make a play.
If he doesn't get back to us soon, like in another week after July 4th holiday, do we maybe go back to the commissioners and
Oh,
say,
absolutely.
here, we tried the strategy that you,
We go to the next commission meeting, and we have the next commission meeting, and we said it was extremely frustrating. You know, and we make them publicly state if they can back him getting us a response, or if they're gonna let him just delay this. But we put the ball in their court, and let them know where we're at, let the commissioners address it with us, and we gotta work through them and with them.
well, I just found out that July 16 is the next time that we go back for an update to the commissioners. Because our schedule's all messed up because of July, the July 4th holiday, but Frank told me that's the day for the next update.
well, I feel like that, July
That's the
16th is,
deadline.
That's the deadline then.
yeah, I agree with that. And if we don't hear anything back, then we go to the commission meeting that night and
Sure.
tell them.
Sure, but we'll put it forward in front of you know, commission and community.
Because it'll be frustrating too, like if it ends up being like July 25th or something like that, and then we get our responses and they're like short and brief.
So how do we let Paul know that's the deadline?
I guess we could tell Frank or, you know, that we'd like to have these, and maybe the city commission just say, hey, we'd like to have these answers by
Yeah.
the next,
3 weeks is sufficient time.
Yeah.
I mean,
for a page and a half of the questions.
Well, since,
Straightforward questions.
Yeah.
since Frank told me what the update was, I could just reply to that email and say, we'll use that date as our deadline for Paul, please let him know.
Yeah, then we gotta set deadlines, because you know, if there's follow-up questions, how long are they gonna take? You know, I mean, it's just,
but I think we could also do those things in parallel, the Paul interview and then the other
I
interviews.
agree.
I mean, cause
Yeah.
who else really, I'm trying to think of who else we wanna interview that's still a city employee. I feel like a lot of them are like, you know, previous employees, so,
I think Tim Reisner might be a good one,
yeah.
the fire department.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like Brent already rejected, Gary Huff, I'm sure rejected.
We have to get on with it.
Gary, Justin Somers.
Yeah,
Maybe we could have like a couple people that we wanna go
Yeah, we
after
could do that
next,
in parallel.
and then come up with questions for each of them.
yeah, again, I sort of build our questions off of what we get from the city manager, but since that doesn't seem to be going the way it's gonna play out, we're just gonna have to build our questions.
Well, I think some of them you still might wanna ask the same questions and see their perspective, right?
Yeah, some of them
Some of
are
them,
appropriate for
right,
overlap.
yeah, and I think that goes back to the very beginning, that's what I said, sometimes like in research methodologies, we do that too, where we'll ask that same question if it's applicable, just so we can get more of that cohesive perspective from different players. So not all of them, but I think we have a good starting point that we'll be able to use, you know, some of those questions for the next interview or.
So I'm willing to reach out to Frank and ask him about the third parties, the private entities that are involved in this, the Zartmans and Warners and those guys. To ask him to reach out to them and see if they can talk to us. I'm gonna start with that.
Okay, so you're gonna, so Zerman,
I'll do what I'm calling the third parties.
Got it.
and Warner,
Asset
Yeah,
and was there anybody else?
Jackson.
We were 20
Ooh.
That's when, oh, wait.
Benson?
Braden.
Bated breath.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any others? That's
Who,
the three
who do you wanna,
musketeers.
I mean, like Justin Summers, who was for.
Benson, Zartman, and Warner.
Yeah.
So you're gonna ask Frank about those.
Could you just ask him too about Gary Huff and Justin Sommers?
I can absolutely do that.
I feel like we might as well just get the list out there for him.
Oh, let him get a hold of it? Okay.
Throw it all at the wall and see what it sticks.
Well, you know, it's just, gotta move forward.
And then in the meantime, while we're waiting on an answer, we can all go back and look at the questions that we've gathered and see which ones would be good
Yeah,
across the board and then individually.
If there's anything we've asked Paul that we wanna, that could apply to any of the others, then.
Once it gets, well, we can follow back up with that at our next meeting. With questions.
What's our plan for like the worst case scenario, which is
No one.
nobody
I know.
talks to us?
well, for me, for us to write a report, okay, we gotta understand what the EPA violation was all about. And what was discussed between the EPA and our city leadership after the violation. And city manager, he was involved in that, he's got all that information, he's vital for us to understand what did EPA say went wrong, what did you discover as you looked into it and worked through that process? I mean, otherwise, we're just gonna be recommending stuff that they've already covered, we're gonna be saying things that they already know. I wanna know what the investigation, what their internals found out, what process improvements they've already started to work on. We're spinning our wheels without information, the report's gonna be, it's gonna suffer
Yeah.
if we can't talk to them and doesn't know that stuff.
The quality of the report, I would question how much it would give, like you said, additional information that's already not known.
Yeah, no, I mean, in my world, if we have a quality issue or a problem, we send something to a customer's bad, I can't fix it if I can't talk to the production manager.
Yeah.
If I can't talk to the guy on the machine, if I can't figure out who did what did what, and how it all happened, I can't fix it. And
But are we trying to fix it?
well, we're trying to write recommendations for
I mean, the burning-
how this is.
Presumably the burnings have stopped.
Yes, yeah, I think the
So
legislation.
we're not trying to learn how to do it better.
No, we're
From where I'm sitting, we're trying to make sure that if another third party wants to come in and use our facility, okay, what's the contract look like? Do we make sure that we have a city employee on site for any burn? Do we make sure that whoever the third party is contracted with the state of Ohio to burn? And they can show us their formats on how they are going to register their information. I mean, from what I can tell, when they burn, I'm not sure, they said they had all their documentation, that they were looking at the weather, they were monitoring the wind, they were measuring the burn. That's what they said, but we had nobody there to watch them, and we didn't know what their program and policies were. So, anybody else coming into our facility, show us how you monitor, show us, what you've done previously. I think we trust too many people on their word. I don't think we had them come in and have enough documentation about who they are, what they do, how they do it. And, I'm not saying we were wrong, in hindsight, we were wrong, but by golly, it's our first time in a fire committee, I mean, in a fire training center, it's new. First generation anything, you have problems, so that's where we're at, right? We have problems.
And the goal should be to,
Address every problem that we can find and make sure that we bring it forward so somebody's looking at it.
And I think, and not to rehash history, but I think we're also looking for how did this come about? Like, what was the motivation for this, you know? And not saying that it was ill intent, I'm not saying that people were doing it out of like maliciously, I'm just saying, I think there's assumptions, I have my own assumptions, which are just based off of really nothing, because we haven't interviewed anyone,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm sure you guys all have your assumptions too, but I think that's where some of these other theories are kind of just running wild, because there's been really no clear answer as to how this relationship even formed, and what was the motivation behind it, what was in it for the city of Piqua,
Yeah.
you know? But, well, I don't know, it's hard to know.
Compounding on Joe's, about burning, you know, and doing things. You know, they passed the ordinance, hopefully it'll stick and things like that, the public ground.
Right.
But I think the recommendations in the report should also reflect that investigation that, well, or proper channels are followed or looked at before even a private company comes in on private land.
private or public.
No, but it's not on public at all. No. But let's say somebody goes and buys 200 acres. I'm just hypothetical. That they wanna come in, they're gonna build this testing facility. But it ought to be looked at, scrutinized very carefully. Being a private enterprise on a private zone.
And I seem to remember at a commission meeting, that wasn't, Paul Simmons going to
Yes.
follow through with.
Yeah, I believe he said he was
private
working
land.
with Mr. Grimes on that. That's what he had said at the meeting.
That's right,
I hadn't heard anything.
but there hasn't been any progress on that.
And that's what I don't, cause I don't want it to go public and then also they go.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Nobody,
Yeah, those rules and regulations need to cross over from public to
that's
private,
right.
so that they can't come in on the backside and do this. 1000% agree.
Well, when we're talking about, what if we don't get to interview anyone, then what do we do? That sort of leads us to the next item, status on legal counsel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Let's not forget about that.
Yeah, I was
Were you gonna still
Well,
add
I was
something?
gonna say, if you didn't get interviewed and things like that, I think in the report that will reflect that
Yeah,
this is based on our general knowledge of what we gained because of these reasons. But I passed you up, you were talking about something else.
well, that's okay. Well, you wanna give the first feedback on legal counsel?
Yeah, so I reached out to someone or an attorney that was recommended to me down in Dayton. This attorney his name is Dan Brown, at Brown Law Office. He expressed an interest in willing to represent us. I have a copy of the engagement letter.
Thank you.
But obviously, you know, I'm just giving this to you guys so you can see it, but we'll wait until we have other offers from other attorneys and we'll compare and then we'll decide who we want to present to the commission as our choice. But his rate's $300 an hour. And he would prefer to send an invoice to the city every month, which I think is customary.
yeah, I can tell you that what I've run into was, like we told you, there are law firms out there who don't wanna take us on because they don't want to be on record for working for the city of Piqua because they've had clients in the past that they've sued the city on their behalf, and they don't wanna take that out of their portfolio, so they won't do it. I've had others who understand environmental law but don't feel comfortable with some of the other aspects about the city government part. You know, they don't know the ins and outs of this, but they've done some environmental stuff, so they're only part and not whole comfortable with doing any of this. And there are a number of others that just, two others that just say, you know, that's really not what we do. So trying to find somebody is a little more of a challenge than we might have fought when we first started.
How did you feel about this, Olivia? If you feel comfortable.
I would feel good about this attorney. And I was gonna say, if there's other firms you want me to reach out to,
Well,
we
let me
haven't
just,
gotten to yet, or.
I wrote to you all, I think, about this Tim Burke, but
Yeah,
just
I
for
think
the record,
we wait till we get some other information back, cause you know, if
Yeah.
it was dozen people, and you don't, we don't wanna keep adding. I think we need to.
he was on vacation.
Yeah.
I spoke to him on the phone, so he'll be back on Monday. And he wanted to see a copy of the resolution, so I sent him that. And a summary of the situation, so I sent him 4 or 5 pages of Frank's report that he put at the beginning of the binder. We talked on the phone for quite a while. He's 76 years old. He is winding down, but still wants to take on interesting cases. There's something about this that he's finding interesting. He's worked for about 40 years in Loveland and Evendale, which are northern suburbs of Cincinnati. So he's worked a lot with small-town governments. Civil rights is another area. Land usage, I think, was one of his. I felt good about him and excited about it, and we'll see what comes back on Monday.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from him and see what his rates are and see what.
And we
his
didn't talk
rates-
money. I did tell him it would be paid by the city within reason.
Okay.
We didn't define what within reason means.
Which is a good start.
Do you know this Dan Brown? Do you know?
I don't know.
Does somebody know him?
Personally, the attorney that I know recommended him. And the attorney that I was originally forwarded to an attorney named Chris Walker.
Okay.
Chris is retiring, he's not taking any new clients, but Chris also recommended him.
I can tell you from my experience, I like referenced people. I like to deal with references.
And I started out with Dayton Bar Association and ran into a dead end with them. So I tried Cincinnati Bar Association and got referred to Bergman. And he didn't want to he didn't think it was a good fit for him. So he suggested this Manley Burke firm and Donnellan and Miller firm. So then that's how I got hold of this Tim Burke, so he's got the same last name as in the name of the firm.
Be worth talking to him, see what he says, as far as hourly rates and that kind of thing.
And the one guy, of the Donaldson, he did get back to me. Distance was an issue for him. Now, Tim Burke didn't mention distance being an issue. But I did say to Donaldson, as I was describing the situation, some of our frustrations with the sunshine laws, and that we weren't able to, the 5 of us, ever to just talk in private about things. He rattled off the section number of the sunshine law that referred to executive sessions. He thought that we should have no problem being able to use that. I said, we've been advised against this, so he knows sunshine laws. And maybe there's another viewpoint
Might be a good one.
on this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he did turn us down, he said he was gonna give me a couple more and I haven't heard back from him, and then he said if I got to a dead end, I could circle back and talk to him again, but I don't think that's gonna work.
So we're gonna get more information from him, from this gentleman.
From this Tim Burke.
Tim Burke, and so the next meeting we'll discuss hiring someone.
Yeah, because on the meeting on the 16th, is that when you want to propose something to,
Yeah, I mean, well,
because we'll meet again on the, 11th, July 11th?
We might be ready by then, I don't know.
I think ideally,
I know,
that's when
I
we
hope
look
so.
to present it. Cause that would be our main opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we could,
Maybe
Try to
that
get
would kind of
this.
be a deadline too.
yeah.
And I can tell that Tim Burke might make a decision faster,
Correct.
get back with us, so. Next on the, are we done with that?
Yeah, I think it's good.
So the next topic of discussion was Scott Smith coming, which we just got the notice of this. So that he's gonna be here on a Wednesday, and then we have a meeting date the following day, but that's the week we don't have the room. So
I like
Did you-
Jericho's idea.
did you have a chance to talk to Alicia about that?
I emailed, and I haven't heard anything back, so
This is for the city building?
no, this is to meet with,
Just to find a way to have Scott meet with the committee
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
without us having a room.
And I also opened it up and I asked Alicia, with Scott Smith, I asked her, that we could be flexible, beyond Thursday. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
sure.
that's also what I said. So I suggested both the meeting places, the Knights of Columbus, and then North Star Coffee, they have like a back little area that can probably hold 20 to 30 people too. So I thought both of those could be utilized, just depending on meeting preference. So those were some ideas, and then, I haven't heard back, so
Do
hopefully.
you wanna propose that to Scott?
Scott is very busy with the Norfolk Southern hearing that was yesterday. So he is on a Zoom meeting right now with East Palestine. So I will be speaking with him tomorrow.
Okay,
I didn't feel it was necessary or appropriate for me to reach out to him knowing that his schedule
sure.
is the way it is.
Totally, no,
So I will respond to you
no problem.
once I feel it's appropriate.
Would you have a preference between those two locations or any other suggestions?
Not my committee, you guys pick.
Well, no, I mean for him, that you think would work well for him.
I think it's nice to support local businesses. I think North Star closes at 2, but I think they would probably open up for you. Maybe they could get a little business.
You wanna talk to North Star,
You can
just
just talk to her,
on a
yeah.
very tentative basis.
Yeah.
Just to see if they're even willing to do it.
Yeah.
I think anywhere else would charge you, and I would hate to continue to deplete taxpayer dollars. If we can maybe support local.
Yeah, right before the bridge.
Yeah.
That's what helped, that Larry Hampton was building.
Correct,
Okay, I know.
yeah, and she makes amazing chai.
So we're in agreement, we would like him to come
He's available,
to
yeah.
meet with us.
Nancy, I might wait until I hear back maybe some days and times that work for him, and then I could propose that to North Star
Okay,
and say, hey, would any of these days, because I know they also do special events, like different music events and like speakers and things like that.
I'd like to suggest that regardless what Scott is able to do, he probably should book a room for that week anyways,
Correct, yeah,
so. And I think he would probably be open if he can't fit it into his schedule, while he's here. Sampling and whatnot, I think, he'd probably do a Zoom even.
okay, so we're tentatively moving forward on that. Well, we need to have him come.
Also, I haven't announced this yet. I have another speaker confirmed. I've confirmed another presenter. I spoke about him in commission meeting. He's got 55 years in toxicology under his belt. He's from New Jersey. His name is George Thompson. And he will be the toxicologist that I have come speak to the community. He's an expert.
Alicia, was he planning on coming the night Scott Smith was coming?
Yes, I'm planning to have 4 people speak, 3 presenters, and I'm waiting to confirm the last one before I announce it. And George Thompson he's the CEO of Chemical Compliance Systems, Inc. So I think, if you maybe have any questions for him, I think that he will probably be also more than glad to weigh in on it as an expert.
So I guess as a committee, we need to maybe sort of, for me, it's a shift to looking at all the health related, the toxins, the testing, all that stuff, because I'm not really up to speed on all the terminology
I've
in that.
spoken with Dr. Gollum from UC San Diego. She's also interested in getting involved, but I feel it's premature. We need sampling and testing and to talk to the community about more healthcare issues and self-reported health issues. And then I'm planning a Zoom meeting with her until she can get her team out here to do blood draws.
Am I the only one that feels ill prepared to ask questions?
I think, go in there with whatever questions you have, even if there's, if there's
I don't think they're expecting you to know this
Be an expert.
material and be an
Right.
expert.
right.
And they're not gonna treat you like the city commission has treated me.
Yeah, no, I won't have questions, but I'll wanna
Be
just
there to
listen to
learn.
what they have to say. I mean, you're only as good as the information you bring in, so bring in the information and do with it what you will, but definitely you should listen to everything and take it from there.
It's an important part of all this, we just haven't focused on it yet. So this'll get us in there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, my game plan was to go in with an open mind and just hear, be a sponge and absorb what they have to say. And, from their own case studies and experiences and what their thoughts are also, I would assume that they'll speak to some of that too, what their thoughts are on what happened, on the events that have happened here.
Because I know zero about toxicology, so.
I did do no chem class, that's it, 50 years ago.
Okay,
So, I think we should also look at finding a space that week for a meeting.
for a meeting.
For a meeting, I'd like to do something on the 25th after they present on the 24th.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to ask the lady at North Star? I mean, we go there
Sure.
so often, we
Sure.
go there every so often, and she's very sweet, they're great, they're really nice people. So I can just ask her, I'll already ask her if we could maybe meet there on the 25th,
Yeah,
if they would be willing to do that for us.
Yeah, because I think from the session on the 24th, we're gonna have more questions and we're gonna answer, so we should get together and talk. Start talking about the information that was presented on the 24th, and if there's more that we think we need to find out, then start setting patterns, places, and go from there.
Yeah.
So, try to get some place.
Yeah. I'll do some looking for where we can meet that Thursday regardless.
okay, good.
He had planned to attend when I initially invited him. But I told him I was gonna be here. I don't think a change in location would probably matter. I don't wanna speak for him.
Okay, committee member reports, comments, anybody?
I did the investigation on the invoice you sent me.
I didn't share that.
Yeah.
So I ran across 3 of the invoices of those many invoices, and I don't think I got them all. I think there's others out there. But 3 of them turned out to be Crown batteries.
Yeah, I saw that.
Not Crown, but
Oh, shucks.
so, I know, so her and I were emailing, and I was like, this is really interesting, because I want an energy storage project for Crown, so I
We talked
I'm
about
in
tablets
talking.
and stuff.
Yeah, so I work with a lot of those engineers, and then I also, because the description on the invoice said Crown module test, so very vague, I'm like, okay, if it's a module, I'm assuming it's this InfoLink telematics screen. So then I also reached out to our InfoLink engineers that deal with like our module screen on that. We do work with universities, but we don't typically do work with BGSU. I had the lady in Inside Sales also run a report to see if she could find any invoices for anything under BGSU, Gentry Green, because that was who the name was billed to, rescue methods. I had her look at all 3 of those, she couldn't find anything. The caveat is they could have taken it from our parts department, like at the branch nearby, which then wouldn't run through an invoice. But there's Crown Battery, which is a company ironically located 35 minutes from BGSU. So there's like Crown Batteries, which are obviously focused on batteries, so different from Crown Equipment Corporation. So I'm assuming I have 2 assumptions. One is that it most likely is Crown Battery, not Crown Equipment, which would make sense considering we know that they're testing battery and components. And the second thing is that if it was a Crown Equipment, which happens sometimes, this is what I was gonna say in general about invoices. We have customers who will buy a Crown forklift, right? They buy it, their invoice, they pay for it, then they go out to some third-party company and slap some automation kits on there. And now all of a sudden our trucks are automated and shown on videos, and then people are like, we didn't know Crown did this. And it's like, well, we absolutely do not. We do not promote this. So that's the other hard thing about these invoices that we're finding is that once, how involved are these companies where it was, that's the, if we don't see that contract or any, any other of that information, we can't, because when customers do that with our trucks, there's an email that's sent that you broke the agreement and we're not, if you're on your own from here on out.
Right.
And so those are things that happen on the back end between invoices, between the end customer and what they might do with some other third party.
Are you saying like in cases like where it's leased or
No, even if they buy it,
if they buy it?
even if they buy it, they contractually, like, you have broken the agreement, we will no longer service it, we take no responsibility for this, because there's liability things too, right? Like if forklifts kill people, right? So like there's a ton of liability in that. So that's why we have it doesn't matter if they lease or buy or
So if they put one of the automation kits on that,
from some random third party,
Yeah, so the invoice,
which is
which was typical, it's Rescue Methods
Yeah.
is billing Bowling Green for this test done to a Crown battery. But who was Rescue Methods doing that for?
Correct, that's the missing piece.
And why were they billing Bowling Green for it?
Mhm.
Don't know, lots of questions.
Mhm.
That's something Carrie Fritz could explain to us.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the thing with all of those invoices, cause I was reflecting, as I was doing my digging on the Crown battery, then I was like, man, like this, how do we learn this? For, like, I have my own resources, cause I work at Crown, but like for everything else, it's like, how can we even find that missing piece to really figure out what was it? What was that item? And the descriptions are so vague.
well, so Crown Battery, did you say it was an LLC?
Crown Battery is, a different company, not associated with Crown Equipment.
Cause I know like if you go to the Secretary of State's website and you do a business search, I bet if you type Crown in, that you get,
I can confirm that Crown Battery is a gigantic company headquartered in Fremont, Ohio, which is a town that I grew up in. Ironically, I'm very familiar with that company actually. But yeah, they're actually headquartered in Fremont, if that would help you with trying to track down where these things are. Yeah, maybe there's an address on the invoice or something, but I just so happen to be familiar with that company.
Yeah,
And it is very close to BG.
yeah.
And then, did you say that you're working with energy storage systems? What is that? What is our energy storage system?
So do you remember in the photo that you saw, it was like a cabinet, it looked like a cabinet? What they do is they take a lithium battery, the cells that are in those lithium batteries, when they get towards the end of the life, they'll take all those cells and put them in this cabinet. So then it will supplement, the idea and the concept behind it is that it would supplement, like for us, right, charging forklifts off peak versus on peak demands. And then it would reduce, customers' utility rates, especially in states like California,
So
where
it sort
there's-
of works like a solar panel,
it's
sort of?
kind of like that, yeah, and then eventually, I mean, there's massive ones out there where you could have like a whole like farm of these, you know, a whole cabinet of these. And it could take energy sources from solar, wind, and combine it all together. And then you kind of have like a energy, they call it like load management, like where, when and where you're pulling energy from. It can get really high, but so, I mean, I'm not technical at all about this stuff. But yeah, there's some things that I'm trying to understand too, because to the Ohio EPA stuff, but there's like UL, there's IEC, there's all these other certs and standards, but I don't know what that is for lithium. And when I speak with these companies, like Enersys, Triathlon, Sunlight, all these companies that are in this space, this is what they call the second life lithium, is like these energy storage cabinets. Well, what do you do with the rest of the battery? Where is that going? And there's no answer.
And then what's a module?
A module, so on every lithium battery, there would be a module. So it's like a device that's within the battery, is how the engineer explained it to me when I asked him, because I said, well, how do I know what if, because I didn't know if it was like a module for a tablet screen, because we have that, and that's called a module, or there's modules in the batteries. Because any lithium battery would have a module in it. To do what, I don't know, because I'm not an engineer, but that's how he explained it to me.
So it's a part within the battery, and they might have more than one module, or it's just one.
I think it's just one, is how it's always been prescribed or described to me.
So these invoices with Bowling Green State University, so circling back around, that relates, so how does that, I know it relates to Petcola and the point that ESRG and those folks were burning here. And invoicing Bowling Green, do we have invoices that directly link those activities? Is that kind of what we're trying to identify? I'm trying to bring everything to Petcola under our umbrella. When you start
You
looking
mean like
into
the burn
research.
date?
Yeah, I mean, how does where invoices go from Bowling Green State University impact what we're investigating?
The invoices that you're talking about are billing Crown batteries.
No, that's the product that was tested. So Rescue Methods, most of the time, it was Rescue Methods, and they're billing Bowling Green for the tests that they performed on a particular day on a Crown battery.
So this is
Or
a
some of
new
it.
method.
But see, do you see the missing link is because, okay, let's say for example, it was Crown Equipment. Crown Equipment it wasn't, but I'm saying, this is how we work with universities. Crown Equipment would pay that university or those students, right, some kind of low rate to do some kind of testing, right? So it could be, they wanna learn more about failure rate testing, whatever it might be. So they might outsource that to a university, so those students get experience, they can learn, et cetera. But then BG could have been working with Rescue Methods, and Rescue Methods did the work, which then billed BG, but it was really this end customer that was also involved. Do you see what I'm saying?
So how does Rescue Methods get their money out of it?
Well, I can see,
Well,
in
they're
a
billing
sense that way,
BG.
that BG will bill, or they get paid by
The
Crown batteries, and then, okay, BG, what are you gonna do for us, blah, 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 and then BG hires another company to do the actual testing, and then they bill them, which means BG has billed somebody else. It's a trail.
And sometimes it's the reverse, lesser frequency, but sometimes it's Bowling Green that's billing a
Right.
company
Right.
for a test.
Because it makes sense, I mean, like, these companies know obviously what they're doing, burning these batteries. And I don't know, maybe Bowling Green has, people at Bowling Green that can get these batteries on site and knows how to
But I've
charge them up.
got a statement. Got a statement by Carrie Fritz saying they had nothing to do with burning batteries.
They probably don't have anything to do with
Them
it,
themselves.
except hiring it out.
Yeah, that's what
Maybe that's what she meant.
I'm looking for who's culpable for in what they did here. I don't see how we can go back and try to get money from any Bowling Green State University. I don't see how you guys burned here, caused damage, we're gonna sue you, I mean,
Well,
I'm
Rescue
trying to.
Methods was doing the burning on those, on their invoices, they were the ones doing the burning.
And
Are they
that's,
culpable? I don't know.
well,
Who was allowing them to do the burning here?
so I guess I'm just trying to understand, I don't wanna spend a whole lot of time on invoices that I don't, there's no way for us to go after anybody.
Correct.
No, it's-
You know,
yeah.
is kind of.
But I don't know that the companies that were, the clients who wanted their battery burnt here
Yeah.
is probably not culpable at all.
They're not culpable, so I don't really wanna move through that whole exchange and go through.
But the company that was doing the burning, even them, I'm not sure if they were culpable or was it ESRG. But then Nick Warner is Rescue Methods and he is ESRG.
So, yeah, you know, he's definitely worth looking into, anybody that had feet in that facility and did some burning has to be looked at, but I'm just trying to say, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time looking at Bowling Green invoices, just because I don't see where they track back to.
Well, I'm looking at them for the money flow and for what materials were burnt. And
I
maybe
would
some of these
agree.
odd little numbers may mean
Material.
something, it means something to somebody out there in that industry.
I mean, I think we do need to understand, I agree with Joe, like,
Bring it home.
stay, looking at Piqua, but at the same time, understand how this worked financially and, the flow of money. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if that presents itself, fine, but, I just don't wanna,
cause it is
I wanna stay
a
focused
gray,
on.
it's a gray thing, it's
You don't wanna spend weeks and weeks and weeks.
We got a lot more to cover, that's a part
Well,
of.
going through that exercise, like that's what made me think of some of this stuff too, is, we've had that happen within Crown, where these so it's like, well, how do we find out who this, and how do we find out who that end customer was, or that end client, and then, like you said, were they really, were they even aware that this was going on with maybe some of their products?
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, exactly,
Oh,
And
yeah.
how do you prove if they were? I mean,
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah,
plausible deniability is everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, the clients, I mean, I don't see them as being culpable at all. I mean, they didn't have to sign a rental agreement or an MOU or any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I
They were
mean.
just a client that this company was doing a service
Right.
for.
So it's been the time and energy on who did what here. Not so much
Yeah.
trying to.
Well, I thought it was worth my time and energy to type all that up and to get the big picture of what was going on and how often was it going on and clues as to what's being burned and where is the money flowing.
Absolutely, it was a good time and energy, appreciate you doing that, but I'm saying,
And
as I look through everything, I cannot draw a direct link.
No, I can't either.
That goes down to Pequot, so I'm thinking
Well,
that
it was
that's
burned
tracking.
at Piqua.
Well, but I can't see that they're culpable for the burn, and all they did is they contracted somebody to do a job, and that person screwed it up. And, so I just don't see where I feel like I've hit a dead end with that part of it. I've looked at it, I've checked everything out, but I can't see where they direct lined it into us.
And I feel like Carrie Fritz could have just opened up that dead end. She could just take us right down there.
Nancy, there's the other half of the problem, right? People who should be talking to us are choosing not to talk to us, so guess what? We've got to draw conclusions, but
Yeah.
without proof, it's an allegation, without proof, you can't say something without getting yourself into some legal liability. So you better have facts.
always end with allegedly.
I don't think Dave and I shared with you yet, but we did something interesting this week. We took a tour of the old water plant. I had asked Frank about it, if we could do that, and he contacted Kevin Craney. And I didn't want to speak up much about it because we've had so many things go wrong, I didn't want to jinx it.
Sure.
So Monday morning, we went out there and we went into just about every building. I think there was one sort of up above the water plant that we didn't get into. But Rescue Methods was what he kept referring to the most. That
Who did, Kevin?
Kevin. We have,
It was interesting and
we have pictures, I have tons of, not great pictures, but pictures and videos, and Kevin was a talker and described a lot to help us understand the site. It's not you guys could make the same arrangement, I'm sure.
Sure.
He would be happy to, but you can't do 3 at a time, and then it's a meeting. And we still wanna see the new water plant, for me, just to put the whole thing in perspective and see the lay of the land and where the water flows and how the new water plant works versus the old water.
She's wondering where the water runs downhill.
Well, I think we did find out how they were using these forklifts that they were renting from Vandalia's, because these basins in the concrete pads where the dirty water, they were using water at first to put out fires, later on they quit doing that, if I got that right. So the dirty water from these burns went down into these basins, into something, I think he called them totes. Big-
Well, it's a concrete pit.
But there's a container down there
It's
catching the water.
concrete wall,
Okay, yeah.
concrete floor, and that contaminated water then was pumped out, I guess by Valacor or some company, into plastic totes.
Then they pick them up and.
And he talked about using forklifts to pick these things up.
Yeah, you'd have to,
So I think
probably have
so those are the
sizes too.
answers, we need at least one answer. What else did we, and I don't know how to share these pictures and videos with you. I think I got them on Frank's flash drive, but the volume's problematic.
Okay. Do you have
I brought the flash drive with me
Oh.
that I could loan you if you might try to get into it.
Cause you have your pictures and
And you've got
videos, and I've
yours.
got a bunch of pictures, and I was gonna try to email them to myself and then upload them that way.
do you have Google? Just do it through Google.
Like the
That's what
Google
you,
Drive,
that's what you
Yeah.
use.
put my pictures up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do that.
I'll do that. I'll make a new folder and share it with everybody.
Well, should I try doing that or just hand you the flash drive?
Can I ask you a question before I forget it? When you went out to the old water plant, was there any pictures taken while ESRG or anybody was out there before they allowed them to leave?
I don't know.
I mean, that's one thing I mentioned at, what, was the last meeting, like, there's people that have pictures of things being burned or what, what have you. It'd be super helpful if that could be shared with the committee.
I have a lot of pictures that I could share with you, but I suggested when the OEPA and RACA shut them down, that place should be locked down because they were allowed to remove everything and nobody knew what was going on out there, and I was told repeatedly that to stop calling them. There was nothing illegal going on out there. Well, how would you know that unless you investigated? So that's very concerning, what was actually in that building, and they allowed that evidence to be removed. So,
In which building?
the whole 9300 Standard 66, I suggested that it should be locked down until we figure out what was going on, and was pretty much told that stop calling us. So that's very concerning, that they were allowed to remove whatever was going on out there without any oversight from our town leaders again. Very concerning.
And that'd have to be a question that we'd have to ask somebody who's not talking to us.
So that's why I was just asking.
Yeah, we saw the chlorine building, and he said that, Kevin Craney said that's where the most of the dirtiest burns or the hottest burns were focused on, and there's a grate in there, and so that's where they did the most testing after they stopped burning. And there was a wall, and then behind that wall, it's an empty room now, but that's where they would have had all their technical equipment to analyze what was burning on the other side of the wall.
And we got all kinds of pictures of all that, and that'll be in our report for sure.
So then they were burning inside the chlorine room,
in the end of it, not the brick end, but the other end.
And was there any type of, and you guys may not be able to answer this, any type of filtration or monitors, or where was that?
There was a grate in the floor, I mean, there is a grate in the floor there in the Marine building.
So then if they were putting that out by water, where does that go?
I don't know if that grate was something ESRG or
It looked like it probably been there forever.
probably had been there.
So that's very concerning
Yeah.
if they were putting it out with water or whatever they were putting out with, where does that grate go to? Is that
Well, the
contained?
grates on the concrete pads were
Right,
going into a collection basin.
right. But the one on the chlorine.
In the chlorine building, we didn't think to ask that question, so I didn't know.
Right, and I understand.
I
There's
can
so
circle
many
back and
questions.
ask Kevin about that though, I think he'd be happy to tell us.
Trying to think.
Every time that we discuss stuff, there's more questions and no answer.
And we could show you the picture, and then it had a great big, for the air in the chlorine building. You look up and there's a sort of like a funnel, a huge funnel sort of thing that would take the air out of that building.
Just to the outside.
Well, we were kind of told that there was other equipment up there, but it's gone now. I mean, you can look up and see the sky, but you could tell like something was removed.
I was there when they installed a new ventilation system prior to the EPA coming, that was not there. When the EPA came, it's not how it looked 2 days prior.
They showed us around that concrete pad where they took sampling. So maybe, I don't know, 6 different places that they did sampling around that concrete pad. He showed us and now those basins in the concrete pad are filled with dirt and they've got grass growing out of it. And that dirt came from a bigger pile of dirt north of the basins, which also now has grass growing out of it.
Do we know if any of these cement collection basins have any cracks in them? Because these batteries explode, I can't imagine that
Good
they're
question.
in great condition.
And those basins were installed without the proper permits. And they've admitted that.
I believe the EPA said
That's
the
also-
permit was supposed to come from the
That's also
state fire
concerning.
marshal.
You know, if you,
I forget how deep they said they were. Okay, so
The basins.
Yeah. I don't.
and
Okay,
was the
yes.
ventilation system to protect the people that were inside the chlorine room?
Don't know.
Or, all those toxins just went out into the air again?
Were the basins, were they capped or graded? Was there
When
caps?
we saw them, they've got grass growing out of them.
So they just have grates on top?
Yeah.
They do.
So, like in cases of those huge rain events we've had in the past several months, you can almost imagine like water pooling and up and seeping down into those basins and possibly going and floating back in amongst the area, maybe even back into the culvert that leads back into the river system. I mean,
I
those
suppose
were,
that's all possible.
those were big rain events that we had recently, so if they're not capped and they're just
They're
graded,
not capped.
okay, cause that's concerning. I thought they might have been capped all this time.
I haven't seen any wording where that was required.
So when you saw them, they had grates over them, they had the
The
grass.
grates that the weeds are making their way right through the little holes in the grates.
Huh. I was under the impression that they might have been capped, because we've had these large, huge rain events like in the past, I would say 3 months or so, you know, when it kind of like flooded.
Yeah, that water had to go
flooded.
somewhere, right?
Yeah, the water had to go somewhere. So if the water was seeped down into those grates, and, you know, I don't know how far down those grates go.
How, are they open? Were those all?
No, they're not open,
grates?
but you're talking like a sponge, so the dirt would act like a sponge and the
Yeah, but-
water's seeping down, getting wet and seeping down.
The
Yeah,
grates weren't completely open.
They are, because that's how the grass is growing out of them.
Yeah, they're great.
This house,
They're not like a sewer cap, there's not like a sewer cap or anything on top of these. Okay.
We just filled them with dirt,
oh, that's right.
and the rates are sitting there.
But the dirt
So
can get
depending on how saturated
That's
those
what happened.
that area might have gotten, you know, those rain events, depending on how saturated that might have gotten down in those catch basins, that might have had the ability to push that, whatever the pollution or whatever is down in that basin back up to the surface, and then right along the surface up there on, behind the old water treatment plant, and trickle down into the
That's all gravel
culvert
now.
that leads back into Great Miami. Is there 2 basins, right?
Yes.
There's a reference to 3, there were 2 in the concrete pads,
And
but I saw a reference to a 3rd one.
The other one's in the chlorine room.
That, okay, so that
And none
is,
of them were
and
capped.
that one didn't have dirt in it, that I
None of
saw.
them were capped, like a sewer cap or
No.
anything,
You couldn't have weeds growing out of them then.
so that's just,
Well, let me take it back.
that's-
Maybe there could be a cap down a foot or so that we couldn't see.
I don't think there's.
I don't think,
I don't think there's a
I don't
cap.
think that would even make sense.
Yeah, I don't think so. We did get to see the room where the current fire department keeps its straw and wood pallets. But we weren't allowed to take pictures there. We weren't allowed to take pictures there. It was the only room that he was hesitant because he hadn't double checked to get permission. So it's, I don't know that he's hiding anything, he
What
just
was
didn't,
in
he didn't wanna get into trouble
Just wood
to show
pallets.
something that he didn't.
Were they the kind of pallets they told us they were gonna be burning?
Wood pallets and straw.
They looked old, and I couldn't remember where the mark is supposed to be for saying it's not treated. Is that the way it is? It's not treated, or is it, or it is treated?
Treated ones are stamped.
Treated ones are stamped, but
And they
those
look
ones that
pretty
need
new.
treated, there's not a lot.
Treated ones are stamped.
Yeah,
So it's not been treated, then there's no stamp, but, and I couldn't,
I didn't get close enough.
we were in there so quickly, and right away he said no pictures, and
I have another question. When you were perusing the whole area, did you happen to come across any little critters, salamanders, little frogs, anything that was littering the grounds or anything that stood out to you?
No.
You know, animals, environmental damage, any grasses that looked
There's a lot of cobwebs.
compromised?
They'll live in anything.
When you guys were walking around, was there anywhere that you wanted to go other than the pictures that Kevin told you couldn't go into and look at? Was there anywhere?
it was only that one room with the,
But you guys could go in and look at it, but
Yeah.
Okay.
we went in.
Did,
There's another
Briefly.
building though that you could.
There was one other building, it was, I don't know how to describe where it is, where there's, yeah, you go up a hill, sort of towards the hydraulic canal, where the big vats with the paddle wheels
Oh,
are
yeah.
for the water.
Yeah.
To the right of, if you're looking north, to the right of that, right beyond the old water plant, is a little white building sort of up on a hill. I think maybe it was a 2-story.
What did he say why you couldn't, did you ask to go in there, and did he say why you?
We didn't ask, he didn't say why. We were hot and tired by then, and
How long were you guys on site?
It was.
over an hour,
We met what time?
11,
11, and we left at like maybe 5 after 12,
yeah.
something, so it was
Did you guys wear any protective gear or any
like.
breathing
I
apparatus?
was wondering about that.
I was wondering that same thing.
Did you see?
We went into the burn room, off the chlorine room. We were walking in there and
Why didn't you, did you guys ask and you guys were told that you couldn't, or?
I didn't ask.
I didn't ask, I think I'm at the age, I'm not worried about it.
We weren't in there very long. The door was wide
What'd
open.
you do with your shoes?
The door was
Burn them.
Well, they
Where are
opened.
your
was-
shoes?
Yeah.
They're home.
Did you?
I'm about ready to throw them away, cause
Don't throw them away.
Throw them away.
Don't throw them away, put them in a bag,
Yeah.
Oh,
in a plastic bag.
Did you guys
this has been a week now.
see any
Doesn't matter.
residues or smell any smells that concerned you? Or,
Not that concerned me, the old water plant just smells old.
yeah, musty.
David, you're not, you're a little bit younger, I think you're actually younger than I am. Is there a reason why you felt you didn't need any protective equipment
I don't
on
think you
site?
should probably answer that. I think you should probably just keep that to yourself.
That's fine.
Well, repeat the question.
Why you didn't feel the need to wear any protective equipment or breathing apparatus while you're on site?
It's not that I didn't feel the need to, I just, at the moment, I was in, asking questions and taking pictures and.
I would have said that would have been
Why is that,
the fire department's
Tom?
responsibility
Because the
to
city
keep you
allowed
safe.
them out there
I'm
to
curious
talk
as to
their
your
site
question.
without any
Why
sort
are
of
you
protection,
asking that
that's
to
why.
them?
It's a
I mean, wouldn't-
liability.
I mean, could you respond to that? Why,
It sounds
What
like
is your
you're
concern?
inferring that he wasn't concerned.
yes, is that,
I was just asking the question. I mean, yes, by your answer, it sounds like you weren't concerned. So that's,
I would think I would think Kevin would have, did he not, he wasn't concerned or wearing anything?
They didn't mention it.
Were you ever out at that site?
Well, earlier
not
you
in
stated you're not a
water.
chemist, you don't have
Now that
any
9300
background in
feet.
chemistry.
Yeah, I've been out
Oh,
there.
Did you wear protective gear?
How are you supposed to?
I'm just trying
Give it
to,
to anyone.
you know, you shouldn't have to worry about that,
And I wasn't.
but
Or that might be
You should have been.
concerned.
But I just wanna clarify,
But the-
I did think about wearing protective shoes. I really, truly chose not to because at my age, I'm not worried about it. Not that there isn't something there. I'm just not worried about it anymore. But that's not to say I'm not concerned that there are toxins still there.
So what, do you guys wanna just see where the whole event happened, or was there something specific?
I had never been there. I've never seen that.
The contamination report did verify that there were toxins located on site after they tested for contamination.
That
They put
chlorine
out,
room,
they put out the report, so indeed it was, they did find contaminants.
that was the
contaminants on site.
hottest area, was that chlorine room. You guys were tromping around in
So I
there?
am concerned about your gear that you might have been wearing that day, your clothing or whatever, the shoes, I would highly advise that you take those and either bag them up,
Bag 'em up.
yeah,
Same for Scott.
yeah, but please don't wear them around your
Don't
house.
put them in the washing machine.
Especially if you got
any of your clothes.
kids or, I don't know what your situations, but,
It's good enough.
the city did have an open house out there on that land.
That's true.
And I didn't see anybody out there that they didn't recommend that you wore apparatus or stuff on your shoes or anything.
For the
So
record, I wasn't aware, but I protected my shoes.
that could be a concern also.
When they did the open house, did they show inside the chlorine room and all?
No,
No, they would not let you.
No, it was only the room, they
No,
knew
but
the
they
building,
sprayed
the new burn building, that we were not allowed to go into.
agitating debris.
Yeah, we didn't go in there.
Oh, the outstructure of the building,
Yeah.
that would be just you.
Yeah, we didn't go in that.
I think that we can all agree that burning lithium ion batteries is not safe for our community. And this happened for 5, 6, 7 years, and I'm not sure if you guys saw the article that was in the battery technology website that said this place was also used to dump hazardous materials.
I've never seen anything on that.
I think I showed you guys that in the.
Yeah, but is there proof that they can prove that it was used for a dumping site?
I'm
I
on
mean,
Battery
we-
Technology Magazine.
No, but I mean, journalists do sensationalize things too,
Right.
to sell things.
And
And
we'll,
I'm not so convinced that it was used for a dump site.
so maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
quite honestly, I think when they did the eviction, I think there should have been a better way to go about that. Because when you're a landlord eviction, if you're a tenant, then you're evicted, and, I know they wanted to they had the notice of violation, and then they gave them, 60 days to leave the premises. But I believe they should have just cut ties with them right there and had a proper entity come in that would have been more well versed in cleaning up, these type of chemicals that we're using in the, regions and just transportation and everything, because we saw a lot of haphazard, judgment using Penske trucks to transport materials and, throwing tarps into, just the regular dumpsters and, you know, just stuff you wouldn't think,
So you're wanting to know more
Professional.
about the cleanup afterwards.
well, yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about right now, is just you know, I think was improperly done as far as the management of the exiting of this company from Pequot in 9300 North State Route 66. I think if they're a tenant of that property and they were evicted, that they should have been, the city should have cut ties and then come in with a proper firm to properly handle all these hazardous materials and dispose of everything accordingly. That way there would be no questions as to how these items were handled. Because a lot of us took pictures as they were exiting the premises during that 60-day period, and they were using Penske trucks, and they were using just regular long dumpsters to dump tarps and stuff that were covering those chemicals and barrels with. And I don't know where that refuse went to. Is it in the Pickwood dump now? I have no idea, you know?
There was something, I
I'd like to
think, there's a
know.
company, Valinor or something like that.
And Buckeye.
Does that ring a bell, Valinor?
He's like Buckeye something.
Yes, Buckeye was another one. So
No,
I didn't see all that.
yeah, is this tarp
But was
somewhere?
it was trucks
Pickwood dump?
full of dirt that was being removed? What was being removed that you saw?
Like those big, how do you say, the big tubs full of chemicals,
The totes.
totes, yeah, the big huge totes. I think the blue barrels too, maybe?
The totes
Those had
the normal
barrels.
one.
I think Hemmelgarn was in.
Yeah, Hemmelgarn
That's
was the
another
contractor.
Service that was out there also.
Well, and what about the crane? When they used the cranes to put them on, to load them? I mean, wouldn't that company wanna know, like your straps of being toxic waste? You probably have debris on your tires that you took
Some of
back.
those companies might not have even known
What they
that
were
their,
moving.
that their equipment was being used to dump hazardous materials. You know, transport hazardous waste.
I
I
had
don't
a
know if it'd be worth,
But that shouldn't have anything to do with us.
Well, if
I'm not,
One thing
if
that-
a private company comes in and wants to do the work and take it away,
well, it's sort of
I'm
bringing
not
it to
gonna
closure.
investigate them.
Okay, well, I think you should investigate who gave approval to union workers that were dumpster diving for debris. I don't think a union worker, like if you're being
That's their
paid,
business, isn't it?
if you're,
Private
I'm not,
company.
I'm speaking.
Well, sorry.
I think a union worker for the city, like the city workers, not in the office, from what I understand, are part of the union. I wanna know why the city manager was allowed to ask a union worker to provide a service for someone other than the city on their city paid public time. I think that's a violation of.
You're all asking good questions, but we've come to a dead end on a
It
human
is
being
7:00.
answering them.
What, were there, for the oversight of the removal, was there a city employee, is there a record of a city employee on site overseeing what was removed, like a log of?
What this is making me think about is maybe we need to have Kevin come in and talk with him. He can answer most of this,
Yeah.
and seems
It would be
willing.
good to,
I don't know if he's
What's your,
but I don't
If he, would get into
know
trouble.
about-
actually coming in here,
You'd have to ask the city manager for approval.
but he'd be a useful resource.
Well, yeah,
A lot of this removal process was documented through video recordings and posted online. So, a lot of it can be recanted just by looking at videos and proof online of how they went about exiting and transporting these materials.
Yeah, I know.
Mostly inappropriately, I would assume, you know,
Should we,
you don't transport hazardous materials.
put Kevin down as a possible interview?
I think you should talk to our wastewater plant, cause they took their water there too.
He's in charge of that too. He said anything that's water, it's Kevin.
Ask them what happened to that.
I think he sounds worthy of an interview.
Yeah, we can ask him, if you, I'll
He's a city employee, but
put him on the list.
He's also.
or a maybe it'd
Covering
be easier.
utility charge.
He said he didn't have to give us the tour of the new water plant, somebody else could do it. But what if we asked him, we've got some further questions, could he be the one that gives us the answer?
He's knowledgeable about the,
Did they talk about this chlorine room? Because I thought they had mentioned something prior that they were gonna like tear down the chlorine room that they were testing in, but
There wasn't any talk of that.
then again, I would assume that you need a proper company to come in that's well versed in, just like a company would be well versed in asbestos removal. You would need a company that's well versed in abatement processes for the chemicals that they used and proper removal of that chlorine room.
Well, let me,
You're moving it through the city. I mean, it's going out somewhere, so you're moving it.
Yeah,
So anything that toxic is moving, it's going, it's traveling.
through our,
let me just contact Kevin and say we've got some follow-up questions. And ask him,
And these are good
what's the
questions.
best way to go about getting the answers to these questions?
And
I'll
Scott
ask
Smith should have some really good answers for Scott Smith.
Oh, he may generate more questions.
Or the toxins being there, the toxins that weren't tested, the dioxins. Now we know, I mean, East Palestine. I mean, the dioxins are insane there, what they were going through.
Did any,
We were told, yes, they would test, they were going to test. And they were going to get with someone and that would happen. And then it was like, no answer, nothing, we
yeah,
asked them.
the only way we can verify some of that stuff now is through documents. But did anybody else have anything else you wanted to share? I'm still working on this what do you know thing. And these are the documents that are backing it up. I changed the format. I keep fiddling with it.
Make it better.
I think I'm up to about 12 or 13, 14 pages now, and I could double that, I'm sure, by just putting in the time. But I'm not, I don't know at what point I should share all of it with you. Do you want it in bits and pieces? Do you want to just wait till, I don't know, how do you want, or do you even need to see it? How do you,
I definitely wanna see it, just whenever you feel like you've got a good point to pass forward.
I can't stabilize it because I'm doing it in chronological order. So I may be way back here and then might find something that, oh, it ought to be up here.
You got to put that.
So it keeps shifting.
Yeah.
So maybe just every once in a while I'll send you what I've got.
Yeah, when you think you've got something that's kind of in a natural conclusion or an area that we can understand in full context, that'd be great.
That may take a while.
Okay,
But there's a lot of interesting stuff in here and in my investigation, it's stuff that we do know.
sure.
We know this stuff and I'm putting in the documentation for it. So it's not like we're starting from scratch anymore.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, the only other thing I was gonna add is I took your page one, like you said, I know you sent over more, but I start with your page one, added some of the stuff, added the items that were on your sheet that weren't on my timeline already. So I'll send that back to you with
okay,
everything, I'll note in green that's
Okay.
on the timeline, either
Right.
between what I started and what you have, and then I'll just
so if it's
continue to go.
green, I don't worry about it anymore.
Yep, and then that way when you go back and you're like, oh crap, there's something I forgot, just add it in black text and then when you send it back to me, then I'll know what I need to add to the
Right.
timeline.
Okay, good.
That was the method, we'll see if it works. Trial and error, but that's what I started with page one.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I felt that it was easy.
Go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right.
Dave was in favor.
We never officially said public comment, but I think we did it, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, I thought
Yes.